going to get going on home economics here. Sorry, the volume's all wrong. That's going to be very loud. Go ahead and get this in here. There we go. All right. I'll activate my Bluetooth headphones. There we go. I think we're there. And welcome to the first home economics session. We are listening to Gentle Love, performing Stardew Valley to sleep to. Nice and relaxing music should be perfect for home economics. What is home economics is the first question. Everybody struggles with money when they're poor. That's just how it goes. And a lot of us are poor. But how to make money is more challenging than it seems at first. In particular, things that can seem like really good ideas can fail to pan out. Home economics is the concept and principle of, okay, hey, you want to back that off a couple shades? Thank you. Holy shit, they went balls hard on it. Okay. I thought this was to sleep to. Yeah, maybe turn that down one more notch. Are we okay here? How loud is this? I think we're all right. Anyway. Home economics is the study of how to produce surplus money by making your house more efficient. It involves various things that they try to hammer into you, like doing taxes and sewing. But you have to take a practical edge to these things. One of the first things you have to do is what's called a time-cost analysis. This is one of the most valuable things you can learn as a home economist. A time-cost analysis basically says, if I were to work a minimum wage job, which right now in my current area is $15 an hour, about a little more. If I were to work a minimum wage job, would I earn more value than the thing that I'm about to do? And if the answer is no, why do it? If the answer is no, the only reason for doing something like this is because you enjoy it. So if I can work for an hour and get $15 and then put that towards, say, a big pile of frozen food, then will I get more frozen food from doing this task? Let's say burritos, we're making burritos, or we're repackaging something, you know? Or other things like this. We're making lunch. Lunch is a really good place to start. It is almost always more efficient to make a lunch at home than to... This guy is really going nuts on the piano. You want to calm down, buddy? Okay, I think this is the last day we use this audio system for home economics. We will find something better. Because he's blowing up that piano and I can't concentrate. I had a lot of faith in this, but it's not going very well. Anyway. So, usually making your own food at home turns out to be a lot less expensive than buying it. But not always, depending on where you buy your food and how much you buy it for. You might actually save money by just buying food off the shelf. For example, if you have to spend $3 on a frozen entree, and you eat 2 of them for lunch, like I do because you're a farmer, then that means spending $6 every day. That adds up fast. That's a $300 food cost over the course of a month. Really bad. But you've got no choice, right? Well, maybe you do have a choice. Let's say instead we were to manufacture sandwiches. Sandwiches cost a loaf of bread, which gives you 16 pieces. That's enough for 8 sandwiches. Plus you need sauces and filling. I usually use mustard. A jar of mustard will get you through a number of sandwiches. Mayonnaise, some meat, maybe some vegetables. The components to create 8 sandwiches may turn out to be a lot less expensive than buying the same number of frozen entrees. But it's important to sit down and do the numbers yourself. Now, one of the great principles of home economics is the words, we've got to work with what we have. Nobody ever starts from zero. You've got something. Whether it's a couple of cheese sticks in the fridge, or a bunch of empty mason jars lying around, or even a microphone stand. What you have can be used to create food. And if not food, create value. I'm eating a cheese stick, but nobody's on the air. It's just Zero. How you doing today, Zero? I have a bunch of cheese sticks. I paid for them before. Thanks to these cheese sticks, if I choose to make burritos, I won't have to pay for cheese. Any supplies I already have are paid for. I have butter. I have supplies. I could build a loaf of bread. Doing this does take labor, and labor has a cost. You have to remember to pay yourself for the work you do. In this case, it's $15 an hour. If you skimp on labor costs, you end up hurting yourself from the bottom line. Not valuing your own time is the fastest way to just plain go broke. Now, just because you want to save money doesn't mean you should skimp on nutrition. That's important. If you mess up your nutrition, your health will dive. You have to make sure you're getting enough vitamins and minerals, that you have enough carbs and protein, that you're getting enough calcium in your diet. However you decide to craft your particular situation, you have to take the time and attention to make sure that you're producing something worthwhile. If you starve your body, then you cut off your leg to service your arms. That's no way to live a life. Let's think about making a loaf of bread. The average loaf of bread will require 3 tablespoons of butter, 2 softened and 1 melted, an egg and a cup of water, and a box of bread mix. I have a lot of boxes of bread mix. And it takes some time. I would have to knead the dough for about 5 minutes, do some basic cooking, take me about 15 minutes. I would have to raise the dough, which means waiting, but that's just a matter of organization. It wouldn't really cost anything. Baking it would take 40 minutes of energy out of the oven, which is pennies, really. Not very expensive. Then we brush it with butter and we call it finished as it cools off. The overall time is about 2 hours. The result for what is basically about 5 to 10 minutes of active work and about an hour 30 of attention is a loaf of bread, which has a certain value to it. We can use it to make 8 sandwiches, for one. Now, if I had to buy the eggs and I had to buy the butter and I had to buy the water, then the cost of this goes up significantly. Since I don't have to do those things, I can remove them from the equation. This is what you call using what you have. If you can get something, if you can have something, you should apply it at full value to what you've got. Plus, there's what's called hobby money, which says that if you're willing to do something for fun, then you don't have to count the labor. In this case, the biggest drawback is the $4 I spend setting up the loaf of bread and about $1 that I spend actually paying attention to its rise, plus the 12 cents or so that I spend baking it. The total of all of this is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 or $6, which comes out to breaking even. It doesn't actually cost money, but it does cost time and effort. And that time and effort is valuable. Now, there's something cynical about thinking that every single second of your life should be metered out as pennies and dollars, and that you should only pursue money in life. It's a very hard-edged, awful look at life. But at the same time, if what you are trying to do is save money, then neglecting the value of your own labor is foolhardy. Consider spending 8 hours baking bread. Now, in this case, we could get an assembly line going. I could bake quite a lot of bread in 8 hours. I have plenty of eggs, I have plenty of butter, I have plenty of water. I could get the whole process up and running, no problem. And given that each loaf of bread actually takes about 40 minutes to bake, then I could probably push out somewhere between, let's see here. 9 and 10 loaves of bread. That's pretty good. 10 loaves of bread. But a full day of work would net me $60 to $75. Today I missed work because my neck hurt. If I had stayed home and baked bread, I would gain bread equal to the amount of money that I would have earned if I had just gone to work. This is the position of the economy that we're in. It is only just inefficient to make most things for yourself. So understanding what is of high value and acting accordingly, as well as choosing to do something as entertainment, is important. The key to doing something because it is entertainment, because it seems interesting, are these words: I don't feel like it. This is where the magic happens. If you don't feel like baking bread, then you don't have to bake bread. You don't need the resources after all. So, you can decide on your own. Now, if something were so cost effective and something that you needed, like say, you absolutely had a certain tonic or cream for your skin, You could manufacture it yourself at a fraction of the cost. You absolutely should. As long as you factored in your labor cost and the supplies that you already had, and it came out very strongly positive, then rather than work and earn money, you should simply produce it yourself. Let's talk about things that are like that. Over here, in this box, I have a very small paper packet that I got from the dollar store. And it is labeled spinach. This package of spinach will grow in about 55 days, provided that it's nice, warm weather. Plants will grow in pretty much any zone. But where we live, probably want to wait till April. It's pretty cold hardy. Spinach is tough stuff, and it's very nutritious. This packet of seeds, setting aside how much money I spent getting to the dollar store, which was nothing, cost me 25 cents. There are 700 milligrams of seed in here. This baby, basically as soon as the soil can be worked, can be tossed out into the soil. The rows can be spaced 2 inches apart, half an inch down, and then you just pick the weeds away from your spinach. The spinach will grow up and out. All you have to do is watch the amount of water it gets. Water doesn't cost very much, and you can do a good job of producing it too and make even better water. But you don't have to. You can put your spinach in the ground and forget about it. And in somewhere around 2 months, you will have some spinach. And however much you get, it will probably be worth much more than the quarter you spent on the seed packet. And the handful of minutes you spent sticking it in the ground. As you start preening the spinach and caring for the spinach and watering the spinach and making sure the spinach turns out good, the yield increases. The rate at which it increases varies. If you keep pests away, then the amount will grow big. But the thing about growing things is that the more you grow, the more likely inefficiencies creep in. This packet of spinach for 25 cents is absolutely a beautiful and efficient buy. But if you focus on growing 100 packets of this spinach, for example, the spinach now costs $25, not 25 cents. You need a very large amount of space to grow all this spinach. So you must have a significant amount of resources already available. Even if you grow it in stages over the course of a year, in repeated growings, you're still going to need a lot of space. And when you grow that much stuff, nature will take notice. You will attract pests, and you'll probably have disease problems. You'll find that you have major crop losses. However, home economics tends to favor those who put in the effort. So if you're stubborn about it, you'll definitely have spinach. Lots and lots of spinach. Personally can use. Which brings us to the next part, output. Do you have family members that can use spinach? Do you know people who want spinach? Because setting up a spinach business means a business license, and it's much more work than it seems at first. You can do it. Of course you can sell spinach. But it might prove to be more challenging than it seems at first. On the other hand, if you grow enough for friends, family, and yourself, then you'll probably get an excellent return on your time investment. Scaling is crucial when it comes to good home economics. doing the right amount. Even now, as I'm talking to you, I'm doing laundry. I'm taking care of my household chores. But in future home economics sessions, we'll be creating food instead while I talk about the math problems. Home economics almost always boils down to math, mathematics. You're trying to figure out how much you would spend versus how much you would save. And you have to factor in labor cost, time cost, the resources that you're spending, as well as how quickly you'll use up what you've produced. Because most things spoil. Remember that person who bought 100 seeds packets of spinach? Even if you plant them in sequence over the course of a 9-month growing season, which is long but acceptable for spinach, it'll go for about that long, if you're careful with the timing and you've got a nice warm climate. 8-month, 9-month. That means growing an eighth of 100 packets, or around 12 packets of spinach per month. That's a lot of spinach production. And spinach won't keep. You can have it in the ground for a while, but eventually you've got to harvest it. And after you harvest it, it spoils very quickly. Which means there's a maximum amount of spinach you can practically use. And if you produce more than you can use, now you have waste on the other end. So, it's the same as trying to bake 10 loaves of bread. I could bake 10 loaves of bread on the day that I was hurt today. If I hadn't hurt my neck and stayed home from work, I could put my 8 hours into baking about 10 loaves of bread. Sure, I have all the eggs, I have all the flour, I have all the butter, I have all the parts. I absolutely could bake 10 loaves of bread today. Problem is, if I baked 10 loaves of bread today, I would be able to use maybe one of them. And my parents' family might be able to use one also. But then, over the next few weeks, the remaining 8 loaves of bread would spoil before I could use them and waste my effort. So, I could have just as easily made 2 loaves of bread today. And that would have taken me about 30 minutes of time, plus a couple hours of attention, which is not very expensive, and about a quarter's worth of oven heat. It's an excellent deal, and 2 loaves of bread is just enough for me and my family to use. The time cost and the scaling is just right. If I were to be aggressive about my bread use and eat sandwiches for additional meals, it would imbalance my nutrition unless I was cautious about it. I could potentially use up 3 loaves of bread a week. And if I found people at work that wanted to buy my bread, then I could make even more. You can only produce what you can sell. Anything extra is waste. So you have to be cautious as you plan. You want to make sure that you're making enough to have functional application if it's cost efficient. In my case, all I would be spending would be a little bit of time, and for 2 loaves of bread, a half hour or $8 is pretty good, especially considering that homemade bread tends to have a very high level of quality. I'm still not sure that I would want to skip work to bake bread, mainly because money is flexible. With money, you can buy anything. Money can be put towards virtually any goal. Whatever it is, money will help simplify things. Money's flexibility is its greatest asset. Get it? Asset? Oh, no? Anyway. The important thing to take away from this is that while you can put lots of money towards big projects, it's not always cost effective. In fact, very often, it can be a mistake to overinvest in something where you can't make use of the resources. Which brings us to one of the best inventions of the world in the modern era, the freezer. You probably have a freezer somewhere near your possession. If you have a fridge that's plugged in and it has a top freezer section, you're paying for a freezer. And the more cold stuff there is in it, the less you're paying for it, because cold mass helps maintain itself. Once a freezer is full of cold things, it takes remarkably little energy to keep it cold. It does take some, but not much. And a freezer in particular allows you to extend the value of processed food. Because if you were to say, freeze 8 loaves of bread, they could then be revived by defrosting and used perfectly normally. That's right, you can freeze loaves of bread. Although I don't like frozen bread, and if I want to make bread, I'll make it and use it and eat it and be done with it. There are other things, though, that I'm willing to process. In particular, we're talking about charcuterie, the art of processing meat. Freezing meat is a great plan. Meat can be expensive, but oftentimes it sees great declines in its cost due to season and temperament. Take, for example, turkey. Turkey is normally moderately expensive. However, just after Thanksgiving, the cost of turkey dives because nobody is buying it after Thanksgiving. During this season in particular, you can often get your hands on a turkey for little to no cost. In fact, in the days just before Thanksgiving, you can sometimes get the best deals. A full-size frozen turkey is a huge amount of meat. Usually it's enough for a full family, regardless of the size. If you live alone, a full turkey is too much, unless you part it. If you process the turkey, cutting it into different sections by defrosting it, butchering it, and then freezing it, you will have portions of turkey that you can use thoroughly. This lets you make full use of your purchase. Making full use of everything is the cornerstone of home economics. There is something that was said by Benjamin Franklin, which is lost a little bit in context in the modern world. So I'll modernize it for you. Waste nothing, want for nothing. The actual phrase is waste not, want not, but it's clearer to say waste nothing, want for nothing. A person who uses everything in their life efficiently will have much lower needs than a person who is constantly squandering things. And being efficient, well, is a bit of a tail chase, honestly. How to put this? A person can earn and collect resources and then try to use them efficiently. But the more efficiency you introduce into a system, the more inefficiencies you'll also introduce. Now, here's an example. The other day, I purchased 500 boxes of candy canes. Now, this is not a euphemism. This is not a pretend. This is something that actually happened on December 24th. I bought 270 boxes of Brock's full-size candy canes, 210 boxes of Brock's mini candy canes at a price of about 7.5 cents a box. That's fantastically inexpensive. The entire purchase cost me about $30. It seems like a great deal, but there are very big strings attached to this purchase. For one, 270 plus 210 candy canes weighs a lot more than you'd think. It takes up space, so I had to set aside a whole day. First, removing candy canes from cardboard boxes and putting them in a huge plastic tote for storage. That plastic tote is so heavy that I can't move it now. Well, I can, but it's heavy, with a capital H, and I'm a farmer. So, moving the tote is troublesome. It's best to just leave it where it is since it contains a whole bunch of fragile candy canes. That said, the peppermint and sugar will keep for 3 years. So I have 3 years to go through all this peppermint candy. It's sugar and peppermint and a beautiful blended seasoning. There are many things I can do with it, but in order to claim it completely, I first had to be able to store it and manage it. Then I had to accept the burden of spoilage. When candy canes get old, they'll start to get sticky. They'll lose their tack, so to speak, but they'll still be quite edible and safe. They'll just be unpleasant for hand eating. So, if I have any left over, I'll still be able to reprocess them into something else. Overall, the willingness to spend a day shucking candy canes. A couple days after Christmas made it possible to buy literally thousands of candy canes and just store them. So now, my tea invariably contains peppermint, which is why I posted early in the year that my life had become peppermint flavored. It's fine. Peppermint is a fine flavor and I like it quite a bit. I'm sure as I consume lots of it, my opinion of it will slowly move. But there are other things I can do with it. Candy cane can be melted down and made into peppermint candies of my own. I have molds that can be shaped. I can turn it into syrups and other things. The important thing is that I look at it from a realistic perspective. If I actually planned to eat that many candy canes as is, just chomp through them, in a year I wouldn't have teeth left. My teeth are already in bad shape, very damaged. So if I were to just go to town and start munching, that would be the end of my teeth. Now, there are a couple of different things I would very much like to examine in the coming days with you. I want to research the cost efficiency of growing potatoes, growing tomatoes, growing broccoli, and making compost. This will be the topic for our next home economics session. But as for today, I think I'm getting hungry. So let's cook something. I think I'm going to make some ramen. Here, I have a ramen packet. I got it pretty inexpensive, because I'm clever like that. This is the highest quality ramen that I'm aware of. Nissin Ryo. Tonkatsu flavor. I love the garlic in this. It's very good. As pleasant as this is, it's going to take a little bit of time to cook. We'll go ahead and get started then. To prepare basic ramen, you're going to need the following things. An oven or cooking surface, preferably a clean one. Let's take a minute. I'm using a glass cooktop, which was a Christmas gift a couple years back. It's a beautiful thing, but it's also a little messy today. We're going to pause and clean. Turn on this light. There we go. Glass cooktops require special cleaner to manage, but they are less troublesome by a mile than other cooking surfaces. And so I'm willing to take the special time and equipment to take special care of this beautiful and efficient tool. I need a cleaner bottle. There we are. Go ahead and scrub up this cooktop just a little bit. Thank you. All right. There we go. Yeah, looking much cleaner. Maybe one more time. It's been a while, unfortunately. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to stream. Having accountability is important in a life. When you're floating all by yourself in the void, it can be hard to keep track. It can be hard to focus and pay attention to the things that you know should matter, but you just can't be arsed. It makes it difficult. You know? So, let's get a little more cleaning surface. Do this one more time. Come on. And we will finish polishing up this glass. There. Okay. The surface is fairly clean. We can do our cooking. Ramen generally involves boiling noodles for the water. Well, boiling water for the noodles. And having a bowl or container of some sorts to hold the finished product. It's also very classy if you happen to have one of those. There's a bad spot here. We're going to get after that with the sponge one last time. Goosh, goosh, goosh. Right, good enough. So, yeah. You need a cook pot to boil water and a bowl to serve the food in. Also, if you happen to have a mesh strainer to drain the noodles in, you can be extra classy. Let's get started. First, add sufficient water into the pan. We're looking at about 2 cups. You can use more water if you want to, but you don't need to. 2 cups is the minimum. There we go. For the ease of experience, I tend to have jars of filled, cleaned, and aerated water hanging out on my windowsill. So I can just grab one and dump. Just a little efficiency hack. Glass doesn't leach, so I use juice glass jars. And allowing water to sit and aerate removes extra chemicals that evaporate into the air. It also causes the air to slowly seep out. So for tea, this isn't ideal, but then I have a shaker bottle for that. Air is important to the flavor of tea, but we're going sideways. Let's get that water started. Here we've got our noodles. Once the water is boiling, we'll put the noodles in the water. In the bowl, we'll put our soup mix. There we go. These easy tear packets are easy to tear. Go figure. Dry powder. And a flavor pouch. The flavor pouch mostly contains oils. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful garlic oil. Okay. One of the things about ramen is that you can add virtually any ingredient to improve it. In this case, I think we'll add an egg. I'll pop this pack open and take an egg. Thank you, egg. I use farm eggs, so a quick rinse is always in order. Select a cup. Tap the egg directly on the counter. Don't use an edge. That will force things from the shell into the center of the egg, which you don't want to do. If you can, recycle your eggshell. I'll throw mine away today. I don't have my worms composting yet. Then, take a fork and stab the egg yolk. Swish it around, up and down fiercely for a couple of seconds. Here we have our egg. Egg tempers in only a handful of seconds in hot water. More importantly, raw egg is relatively safe for consumption. This is a major misunderstanding. People are terrified of raw eggs in the United States, but you have to understand that raw egg is not very dangerous. If you ever watch the Rocky movies, you'll see him gulping down raw eggs by the dozen. The protein is what the body needs. And he's not shy about consuming it in the easiest way possible. So then, what should you be scared of? Where's the problem? The truth is, most people are afraid of eating raw cookie dough, not raw eggs. And they have good reason to not want to eat raw cookie dough. Raw cookie dough will turn your stomach. Now, raw eggs, if they've been at room temperature for a long time, have the possibility to be awful. But the odds are extremely small. You'll probably be fine. And if you have farm eggs, the odds are even smaller. Farm eggs still contain their bacterial coating, which helps protect them from invaders. Supermarket eggs, that gets washed off, which is the only reason you need to refrigerate supermarket eggs. Well, there's one more reason, actually. You see, farm eggs can be kept at room temperature for weeks. Because of their coating, they don't need to be refrigerated. But if you do refrigerate them, you will triple to quadruple their lifespan. Meaning that if you have farm eggs, and without washing them off, you stick them in the fridge, they will keep for nearly 4 months. You will basically not be able to wait long enough for them to go bad. It's impressive how long they last. Nature is very efficient. But because manufacturers wash off that albumin, with supermarket eggs, you have to be careful not to leave them at room temperature. That's just the way it goes. My water is coming up to temperature. I've got a lot more than 2 cups here because I like to let the noodles move around a little bit. I will limit how much water I actually add to the broth when I prepare this. A small amount of the water will be poured off to form the soup base. The rest of it will go down the sink as I strain my noodles. Here's my strainer. There we go. Make sure there's no mysterious residues or anything on the surface of the metal. Appears to be just fine. We'll switch to spritzer mode. Ooh, look, I'm making a mess. Yeah. Okay, we're ready to go here. Well, they say a watched pot never boils. That's mainly an expression of how impatient people are. Here I've got some bell molds, which I can use to make beautiful peppermint candies. I can line this with chocolate, peppermint, and take various ingredients and combine them to produce my own candies. Make very nice gifts, perhaps, next year. An interesting math problem is the ramen noodle. You see, I'm eating a dried ramen packet. I was efficient, but because I'm getting the high-quality Nissin Ryo, I still paid about $1 for it. I could have gotten it cheaper if I was willing to wait for expiration dates and things, but come on, it's the best brand. Why not just grab it when you see it? In addition to having concerns of effort, cost, and potential value, there are also concerns of availability. If you fail to get something when it's available to you, you may end up incurring transit costs for getting it later. In the modern world, that means shipping prices. There are various ways that you can manage shipping prices, such as simply buying enough from Amazon. But you must always keep these in mind. It's not something you can just forget about. We've got about 12 minutes left in the stream, and my water is slowly getting ready to boil as I do laundry. I have manufactured noodles before, ramen noodles. The cost was $0 because I used components I already had. To make ramen noodles, what you need is bread flour and salt and baking soda, but the baking soda must be prepared. The water's boiling, in go the noodles. It'll be ready in about 3 minutes. To create the substance necessary for making noodles, ramen noodles in particular, you need to turn sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, into sodium monocarbonate, washing soda. Washing soda is a substance that's not used very much in the world anymore, but used to be very popular. To make washing soda, take sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, put it on foil, and then put it in an oven at a low temperature, about 200 degrees, for about an hour. The heat will cause water and gas to escape from the baking soda. This changes the molecular structure from sodium bicarbonate to sodium monocarbonate, as carbon dioxide and water get out of the formula. This sodium monocarbonate is a perfect stabilizing agent for ramen noodles. Then you take 1 box of bread flour, 3/4 of a teaspoon of washing soda, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and 3/4 a cup of water. Blend them together, rest them, and then knead them, in this case with your feet because the dough will be tough. And then roll them and cut them using a pasta cutter or a knife if you're insane. And there you have ramen noodles. They should be set up in the fridge, or you can freeze them for instant use. There's that freezer again, extending the value of something that otherwise couldn't be used easily. Ramen noodles can be manufactured, but that's a lot of rigmarole for $1 worth of noodles. And a ramen packet's value is not in the noodles, it's in the sauce. So imagine my surprise when I was working and I saw bottles of Yamasa concentrated ramen broth float through my store. This stuff tastes fantastic. Authentic ramen. It's a shoyu chicken mix. And if you add a little fish to it, the authenticity goes crazy. If you're willing to make dashi stock, it's an absolutely brilliant substance. The catch? No noodles. You could use macaroni, or, in my case, I could manufacture ramen noodles. How many? Well, let's see. I have 6 bottles plus, I think, 1 or 2 in the fridge of ramen broth remaining. So, run the math on that. We're looking at about 50 sets of ramen noodles. That's probably about a 3-month supply of ramen, assuming I eat it almost every other day. To manufacture 50 sets of ramen would probably take about 12 boxes of bread flour. And it would take quite a while, but not an impossibly long amount of time. It's really a very practical idea. The noodles are beginning to loosen. I'm spreading them apart with the fork and paying attention to the tension. Smelling pretty good. I'll pour my raw egg into my bowl, like so. As the ramen noodles get close to finishing, they may foam up. Be aware of this. Hot stuff. I'll go ahead and turn the temperature down now. They can finish coasting. Finish cooking on the heat that's present already in the package. The tension is getting to be about where I like it. I might wait just a minute longer. After that, I think it's time to eat. I'll pour the hot broth into the bowl now, about a cup or so, maybe a little more, however much broth I want to have. The egg will immediately turn, and flour. Some of it will do what egg does. I'll pat out the extra moisture with some vertical tosses and rinse the starch off. If I had set up the noodles separately, I would be more studious with this. But because I'm using the same water for the noodles as I used for the sauce base, I'm not too concerned. In it goes. Normally you don't want to dilute your broth with water, but you use the water to make the broth. So we're getting into a Thanos, I use the stones to make the stones type argument, which is a bit silly. All right, shut the oven off, a gentle stir, and here we have our ramen. And it's food time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a while.